Given the success of Neversoft's Spider-Man, it was obvious Activision wanted a sequel, and a sequel they would get with Spider-Man 2 Enter Electro. I don't see many talk about this game and I don't fully understand why. I find this game just as fun and competent as the first. Was it as balls-to-the-wall comic booky as the first? No, not exactly, but what it does give us is a small crime-oriented story that I find just as entertaining. Are the stakes as high? Nope. That's okay though. The roster as a whole isn't as iconic either, but we have a couple big leagues sprinkled in such as the Lizard, Sandman, and Electro. Plus, just for funnies, can we just stop and appreciate how awesome the soundtrack is to both of these games? Shame on me for not pointing this out in the last video, but these are packed with bops and a half. Today, we're going to be diving into the world of Spider-Man 2 Enter Electro. If you haven't already, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any videos like this in the future, and put on your suit as we swing down the road to Marvel's Spider-Man 2. This retrospective is going to play out a little differently from the first. It's almost exactly the same game when it comes to gameplay, so I'm going to put more focus on the story and add the additional mechanics in the gameplay section. Just like the first Spider-Man by Neversoft, there isn't much history on the development of the game, but the facts listed are pretty interesting to say the least. For starters, this sequel isn't developed by Neversoft, but replaced with Vicarious Visions. Rino Romano recasts as Spider-Man, and Jennifer Hale, another returning voice, returns as Rogue and a couple others. The development cycle of this game is unknown, but I would assume it was a very short cycle considering the game released a little over a year after the first. The big piece on the development cycle is the unfortunate delay due to the 9/11 attack. The final battle of this game was originally supposed to take place on top of the Twin Towers. There was a whole set piece showing Electro destroying a portion of the North Tower, and yeah, it does sound really cool, but of course it was changed into a generic building. That is completely understandable. Now, the story starts with a terrible recap of the first game. It doesn't make a damn bit of sense what they're trying to recap here. Instead, it just gives us little snippets of the first couple missions of the game and the ending boss encounter. Actually, I'm gonna break each bit down so you know. Previously on Spider-Man, Otto saying to "Face me, coward," Spider-Man steals Octavius's device, Peter Parker in the crowd says, "That was Eddie Brock." Venom pops up out of nowhere, Daredevil confronts Spidey and says he doesn't want to believe the webhead pulled off the heist but has to make sure. Cut to Black Cat questioning where Rhino is just before she gets horned to death from behind by the bastard. And then Otto states that Phase 1 is completed.
Phase 1 completed.
See, he just said it. He also says to begin Phase 2. But it cuts to Spider-Man saying no one can control the symbiotes while cutting to Monster Ock. Now that I recapped exactly how this went down, does any of this, and I mean any of this, explain what Neversoft's Spider-Man was about? Almost not at all. It honestly baffles me just how stupid this recap was. It wouldn't have even mattered if it was in the game. In fact, it might even be better if it wasn't. At least that's out of the way so we can focus on the actual sequel now. It opens up to a mysterious hooded figure walking into a laboratory called Biotech. Who in the world could this be? Oh, never mind, it's Electro. It's sad to see him shocking the Lizard right out of Dr. Connors. Electro ends up stealing a device and electric hacks himself into Connors' computer. The squad of police officers come in and try to save the day, and Electro doesn't waste any time, but instead finishes them off and says, "Soon!" What? What is he even talking about? I've replayed this game so many times, just like the first, and this response still doesn't make any damn sense. Then of course Electro pieces out of the rooftop and flies off cackling like the clown he is. I'm gonna be honest here, as much as I love this game and want to stay positive, I can't help but point out how terrible Electro is in this game. His voice acting was laughably bad, as you will see later in the story, and it was really hard to find anything positive to say about the character. I had more fun with the other villains, and that's sad. He is the main bad guy in this game. Let's not get too carried away though and see what the webhead is up to. Oh, he's reading the paper. What does it say? Oh. The first level starts off with our beloved Stan Lee narrating, and we get a good look at the city environment. As you can see, it looks almost exactly the same with a few exceptions. One, the pre-rendered background of the buildings is a nice touch that gives us more of a city, and the color palette is a nice touch to show that it's dusk. These minor touches are nice and can really change the feel of the otherwise generic layout of buildings. We see Spider-Man running to fight some crime as Beast randomly jumps into chat. Why Beast? Well, they didn't want to use Black Cat again. Jennifer Hale is already voicing 3 different characters here, and Beast wanted to teach Spider-Man how to, well, be Spider-Man. We next see Spidey reading more of the newspaper a block away from where Electro destructively left with the device, but instead of trying to stop him, he was too invested in his paper to intervene. But we do hear a bottle break now, and it's time to kick some ass. He witnesses another large explosion and luckily throws a spider tracer on another hooded figure's motorcycle. I find it so hilarious that these villains are hooded up. We can clearly see the costume underneath, and not only that, but it doesn't make any sense why they'd be hooded up to begin with. Just before Spider-Man can pursue his target, he's stopped by a couple Duke Nukem wannabes. As a kid, I loved these beginning levels. I truly felt like I was in New York, and it blew my mind that we were fighting in the streets instead of on rooftops. You were kicking some ass and chewing bubblegum? Well, never mind, you find out that you're all out of gum, but you go ahead and put out the fires that are spread out through the city block. You know, he's doing that hero thing as usual. Once the fires are out, you can take a breather, shoot some hoops, and move on to the next level. To get better signal, you crawl back up to the rooftops to find a lot of guards waiting just for you. They came prepared for this webhead, that's for sure. I mean, look at these assault rifles placed throughout the level. They had one job, and they were going to do everything they could to finish it. The only problem was Spider-Man was not taking their crap. We waste these suckers and move on without a problem. I enjoyed swinging and fighting on top of the bridge. It was a nice little set piece that gives us a little pizzazz to our otherwise generic building layout. We catch up to our hooded figure as he walks into a warehouse to meet up with another hooded figure. They knew about Spider-Man following from behind, and it was planned all along. The first hooded figure is backed by 5 Duke Nukems. There's no way Parker can get out of this one. You run around through the warehouse and fight off the thugs. If only Spidey called for backup.
You should have called for backup!
That's what I just said.
You should have called for backup!
Okay.
You should have called for backup!
Good God. These thugs were annoying as hell. I heard the backup dialogue so many times, and I was so happy for the next cutscene. Spider-Man interrogates one of the thugs, and the thug says, well, to be honest, I don't really know what he says.
I ain't telling you spit!
Yeah, that. The thug eventually spills the beans, but holy crap, it's the Shocker! I had no idea he was one of the hooded figures, in all honesty. I'm just kidding. Of course I did. You have to fight your way out of the warehouse as it burns to the ground, and as annoying as the fight can be, it is a really cool set piece, and I love Shocker. As low tier as he is, Herman Schultz is one of my favorite villains today. I'm just glad the webhead pulled him out of the fire so I could see his pretty yellow face again. That's what heroes do, guys. It's another day now as Spidey is swinging through the city and almost gets blown up by an RPG. It might not have done any damage to the building it hit, but I know it would have hurt the superpowered hero for sure. It sucks that you have to stop these random thugs from letting off a huge bomb. You could have been at the airfield 20 minutes ago if it weren't for them jerks. But what can I say? Time waits for no one. In my humble opinion, this was the worst level of the game. Every single time I play it, I roll my eyes and wish it would just disappear entirely. Not only is the layout of the level confusing as hell, but it's worse knowing you have to find 4 thugs with keys to shut off the device. And it's timed. It was a major pain in my ass even as a kid, and to be honest, it still kind of is. I'm 27 now and I cannot stand this level. We find out the thug was right and there was in fact a meeting at the airfield. You see one hooded figure who's actually pretty unknown, but you see him walk away from the airfield and a plane getting ready to explode? I don't fully understand the plan of this, but that's the gist. So it's up to us to swing in, kick some more ass, and stop the plane from blowing up. These idiots are basically just stirring shit to keep Spider-Man occupied, and it's obviously working. They had a hostage in the plane as they escaped. I guess it works, but it's a little pointless. This is another level that is a pain in the ass. If it's not done carefully, that plane will explode and you have to do it all over again. You have to be a true hero with some true hero instincts to get through this, and with enough trial and error, everyone will get through it. The helicopter is getting away, but thanks to our spider tracer, we are on its tail. This is a level I have completely wiped from my memory. Replaying and working on this retrospective, it honestly shook me to even see this. I must have one and done this level and skipped over it during my future replays. Nothing about this mission is important, so we will move on to the next area in the train yard. It's not too bad, but we focus on finding our target within, and once we do, we find out he is handing the case off to another hooded figure. Hell yeah. Good God, there are a lot of these little bastards. We see the hooded figure we were chasing disappear in the most obvious way that shows it's the Sandman. These next couple levels are fun and well put together. You have to catch up to the escaping train while trying to avoid Sandman. He puts up big sand walls that you just have to knock down by throwing objects at it, and just as you reach the train you find out who the next villain is. The Beetle? To be honest, I had no freaking clue who this guy was until I was older. When I was younger, I knew a lot, and I mean a lot of Spider-Man's villains. But the Beetle was not one of them. He's more of a cameo anyways because he pieces himself out and leaves you behind. Luckily, he left his special villain invitation in his secret robes though. Lucky and not convenient at all. Dun dun dun. We finally find out what Electro's plan is, and it's what he's been trying to do with every story I've ever read with Electro. He craves unlimited energy, and he thinks this little device that can power a city block can do it. I mean, I guess it's worth a try. Sandman agrees it's pretty rad, but points out Spider-Man keeps kicking everyone's ass. What are they gonna do? Sandman didn't know Electro had that planned out as well by using Hammerhead. He's a lower tier villain as well, but I've always had a soft spot for him too. Never understood why. He's just a mobster that charges like the Rhino, but he also shoots a Tommy gun. Hell yeah. He tells his plan and everyone claps like it's God's plan, even though it's the same thing they've been trying to do this whole time. Nothing important, just keep trying to defeat Spider-Man. That's all fine and dandy, but what they didn't realize was they were in a poorly thought out story to a video game, and Spider-Man is meant to kick their asses and move on to the next level. You in fact save everyone and kick said ass and face off against the Hammerhead. This boss fight was fun. Like I mentioned, you have to dodge his charge attack that's similar to Rhino's, and you also have to watch out for his Tommy gun. It starts off indoors, but it does lead outside. I honestly can't remember, but I am assuming this boss fight was on the Empire State Building, which is pretty cool. You finish Hammerhead off and you find the Sandman return to kidnap the doctor Hammerhead was holding hostage. Spidey has seen her before and knows she works with his pal Dr. Connors. Parker gives Doc a call, but there's no real answer, just bangs and a mystery. So Spider-Man swings over to see what's up. And that leads us fighting our way through biotech, the laboratory of modern science who just so happens to have black market research into diabolical weapons of mass destruction. It's kind of the usual with science labs in superhero stories. You fight a bunch of weaponized drones while dodging lasers, and you fight Dr. Connors as well. Unfortunately for us though, he is transformed into the Lizard. This boss fight is so much fun and can be difficult to complete. You have to mix a special serum with the web shooters to turn the Doc back into his human form. The whole set piece is great and might be one of my favorite boss fights in these two games. It's not the best, but it is up there. Connors explains how dangerous the situation is with Electro using that device and tells the webhead to visit his colleague's office on the other side of the complex. Of course, the police is after you while you try to peacefully swing over there. Thanks JJ, you bastard, for making things harder on us as usual. It's okay though, we make it to the lab and find that Electro needs a large jewel to power the device. Where in the world would he find something like that? We don't even have time to ponder on the question as the Sandman busts in to kick some web-headed booty. This boss fight is fun as well. Your goal is to get Sandman wet. Luckily, if we solidify his sand particles with water, he is vulnerable to get the sand kicked out of his pants. Or the lack of pants. As Spidey finishes off Sandman, he too conveniently finds out that Electro found the location of a jewel inside of a museum, and this is where it gets to B-movie level of cheese. It is revealed that Electro has the power to turn samurai suits into electrified, possessed demon thugs. It's so out of this world stupid, and I can't help but laugh. How in the hell did I think this was cool back in the day? The more I work on this retrospective, the more distaste I have for this game. Oh god. Let's carry on with the boss fight though, with Electro inside the space exhibit, and it's fun for the most part. It's a lot of dodging, and even though you defeat him, he holds the doctor hostage in order to force Spidey to hand over the jewel. Once Electro inserts the jewel into the device, his plan is accomplished and he transforms into pure energy. I do enjoy this final fight. You have a battle damaged suit, which really shows just how powerful this battle was, and given the changes they made, it still looks pretty epic. They worked with what they had and it succeeded. I loved seeing Electro as pure energy, and I love the voice change.
Dying time is here, Spider-Man!
Instead of sounding like a whiny dorky bitch, he sounds threatening for the first time of his life. No wonder he wanted that unlimited energy. He's finally cool. And just when you think they could do nothing wrong at the end of the game, they go and give us the worst and also best ending I could possibly think of for the game. You do defeat Electro and it just goes to the next day, I guess. There's no final cutscene when it comes to the fight, but what we do see is Spidey's reaction to the Daily Bugle. It states that New York was thankfully saved by our mighty Thor. Of course JJ gives the credit to someone else, and as Spidey swings out in the sunrise, we cut to the prison where the gang of criminals in this sequel are gathered. Electro complains as the rest sit around and play cards. Electro says he would have succeeded if that meddling kid Spider-Man didn't get in his way.
Close, so close!
If it weren't for Spider-Man, I'd be a god now!
This scene of Electro is pathetic, and he sounds like the whiniest little baby I've ever heard. But what makes this ending rule is when they look over to find the gang of criminals from the first game sitting in the cell next door. It is so cheesy and in no way, shape, or form makes sense. You know, these villains, for one, why are they just in a random jail cell together? Like, they should be in separate cells in a maximum security prison. But it's okay. I've always loved seeing this ending. It's fine. And that's the story to Spider-Man 2 Enter Electro, folks. And I must say, this story kind of sucks. I went into this retrospective on a positive note and rewatched the gameplay as I wrote, so you're kind of getting a live reaction to how I feel about this game. This is the first time I analyzed this game critically, and the story is a mess. There was no stakes, and all I can think of is, why in the world were these other villains that are just as strong, if not stronger than Electro, helping him activate a device to make him stronger? It really throws me through a loop and I'll never understand. His plan wasn't well thought out either, and it was all over the place. The only decent part of the plan was slowing Spider-Man down every corner just to make it easier to activate the device. And the only reason I think that was used is to add more levels to the game. The gallery of villains in the game were subpar at most, but we did get one that I wish we had more of, and that was the Lizard. His boss fight was the best in the game, and I think we could have had a way cooler story focused on Kurt Connors than Electro. We already saw the Lizard and his army in the first game. They could have built upon that and made a far more gripping story. They probably had no idea the Lizard was in the first game, given the recap of it in the beginning of this game. Let's talk about the gameplay. The gameplay is almost identical to the first, with a few minor additions. I made a minor mistake saying that there was a web yank in the first one, but it wasn't until this game that you could do that. It's a cool mechanic to have when it works. When using it on common thugs, it worked just fine for me, but when using it on objects during the Shocker boss fight in particular, it didn't really work as well. On top of that, you had an ability where you could dash back down to your enemy and hit. It made Spidey faster and more agile, and it was a good move to have. Granted, it was a little overpowered. Just jump and attack and Spidey dashes over with a hit, but I'm not really complaining on that. It's still badass. You also had a weird grappling ability that didn't really do much, but I mean, it looked cool at least. Let's see here. We also had some special webbing abilities. You had electric webs, ice webs, and all kinds of different things. I thought that was pretty cool. My favorite part of the game was the suits you could get. It had a number of interesting suits. Some were in the first game and some are completely new. I loved using the Dusk costume myself. If there was anything to complain about, it's this. They removed the swear filter in this cheat code menu. How the hell do you expect me to give this game a decent grade with the best Easter egg of Easter eggs removed from the game? Oh my god, this is ridiculous. Spider-Man 2 Enter Electro is a game that I had good memories from as a young thwipper snapper, but after looking at it on a critical level, I find my memories tainted with the simple truth that this game kind of sucks. The story is literal ass, and it really disappointed me upon finishing this. But with that being said, I still have fun with this game. Something about being in this low polygonal world as Spider-Man puts me right back into the mind of my childhood self. And I love that about this game. It brings me back to the times of innocence where I knew these small villains specifically because of this game. I've learned that these lower level villains aren't really iconic, but they were huge to me at the time. As bad as the story is, it's a nostalgic ride that I can easily play without any trouble. I grade Spider-Man 2 Enter Electro a C+. Have you all played the terribly unambitious title? Let me know what you think of this game down in the comments below, and don't forget to drop a like and subscribe as we continue down the road to Spider-Man 2. Next up, we're heading into the Raimiverse, friends. Until next time, take it easy, bubs.
Soon